You this wicked pastor. You think say Warri people no go catch you? That shouts scattered through the hot afternoon like gunfire. Market women drop baskets of pepper. Okada riders slammed their brakes. The whole of a Furin roundabout froze as a black SUV screeched to a stop near the police checkpoint. Dust rose thick, mixing with exhaust fumes and confusion. 2 officers jumped down, shouting, "Oga, open your boot now. Open 'am." The man behind the steering wheel wore a spotless white suit, sweat rolling down his face. His hands trembled on the gear. His voice cracked as he said, "Officer, I am a man of God. I'm late for service." But the officers were not listening. One yanked open the door. Another reached for the boot. The first thing that came out was a smell. Something raw, sick, and heavy like rotten meat. Then the white cloths, 5 of them, neatly folded in a big black nylon bag. When the cloth slipped off, the entire road screamed. There they were, 5 human heads, eyes half open, blood still wet the edges. A woman fainted right beside a palm oil seller. A teenage boy shouted, "Jesus wept," and ran into the traffic. Phones went up instantly. In Warri, everything becomes a story before it becomes a secret. The man in the white suit, Pastor Daniel Cole, collapsed on his knees. "No, it's not what you think. I can explain." But his voice was swallowed by the crowd. "You dey mad?" "Explain what?" someone shouted. "Nah human head be that. Nah ritual." Another screamed, "God punish you. Fake pastor. You done deceive people finish." Within minutes, sirens wailed from the distance. Detective Henry Jacobs arrived in a police van with his men. The tall detective walked with slow authority, his brown eyes sharp as cutlass steel. He looked at the open boot for a long second, then turned to the trembling man on the ground. "What kind of pastor drive around with heads of human beings?" he asked calmly, but his voice carried like thunder. Daniel shook his head, his mouth dry. "Officer, please, I swear to God." "Don't swear yet." Henry cut in. "Save your prayer for when you stand in court." The detective gave a sharp command. "Handcuff him. Take him to Warri Area Command." The crowd went wild, shouting, "Justice. Wicked pastor. Blood for blood." Someone threw a stone that hit the side of the car. Cameras clicked. Phones recorded. The man who once preached fire and holiness now looked like a helpless sinner under the sun of judgment. That night, the video went viral across Delta State. At the Warri police station, the fluorescent light buzzed as if angry at being awake. Pastor Daniel sat in a metal chair, his white suit now stained brown from dust and sweat. The room smelled of old paper, cigarettes, and despair. Detective Henry placed a small recorder on the table. "Pastor Daniel Cole," he began, "you were caught today with 5 human heads in your vehicle. Do you deny that?" Daniel's voice trembled. "Officer, I don't know how those things got there. Someone must have." "Someone?" Henry raised a brow. "So you're saying strangers put 5 human heads in your boot and you didn't notice the smell?" "I was carrying some bags for a man at O'Keefe Market," Daniel said quickly. "He told me it was foodstuffs for the poor. I swear I didn't open them." "And this man's name?" Daniel hesitated. "I can't remember. He's new in church." Henry leaned forward until his face was inches away. "You forgot the name of the man who gave you death to deliver?" Daniel's lips quivered. "Officer, please, I'm innocent. I serve God." Henry stood and paced slowly. "You serve something, that's for sure, but we'll find out who." He ordered an officer to take Daniel's statement and walked out. Outside, cameras flashed as reporters shouted questions. "Detective, is it true the pastor confessed? Were the heads used for ritual?" He ignored them all. He knew Warri gossip could build or break a man before sunrise. At Okemagba Avenue, in the Cole family mansion, Grace Cole sat on the tiled floor of her living room, phone buzzing nonstop. The curtains were drawn, the TV blaring news of her husband's arrest. Every channel showed the same thing: popular Warri pastor arrested with 5 human heads. She covered her mouth with her shaking hands. "Oh, Lord, Daniel, what have you done?" Her 8-year-old son, Michael, came running from a hallway. "Mummy, why are people shouting Daddy's name on TV?" She pulled him into her arms, holding him so tight he could hardly breathe. "Don't worry, my baby. Daddy will come home soon." But even as she said it, her voice broke. Outside the gate, she could hear neighbors gossiping. Some were singing mockingly, "All power belonged to Jesus, except your husband own." She wanted to scream, to disappear, but her feet were heavy. She had stood beside that man for 10 years. Through hunger, through blessings, through the rise of the church that became a fortress of miracles. How could this be happening? By dawn, Warri had turned into a boiling pot of rumor. Radio stations repeated the story every 15 minutes. Women in market stalls hissed his name. At the church compound at Divine Mountain of Firelight Ministry, a crowd of members gathered, arguing and crying. One of them, Mary Johnson, waved her Bible in the air. "This is the work of Satan. They want to destroy our Papa." But others murmured bitterly. "Since when Pastor Day drive expensive motor like politician? Where all the tide day go? Now we day blind." Near the gate stood Samuel Adams, the young church assistant. He didn't say a word. He watched the crowd with eyes full of guilt. He remembered nights when Pastor Daniel would call him to pray alone in the church at midnight. The lights would be dim. Strange chants filled the air. One night, he had seen the pastor bury something small behind the altar. When he asked, the pastor told him, "Don't question spiritual things, Samuel." Now the same man sat in a police cell. Samuel's stomach twisted. "God, did I serve a devil all this while?" Back at the Cole residence, a loud knock shook the gate. Grace wiped her tears and opened it to see 3 policemen. "Good morning, Ma," said Officer Peter Miles. "We have a warrant to search the house." She nodded weakly. "Please come in." They moved room to room, taking pictures, checking every drawer. Inside Daniel's study, the walls were lined with hundreds of Bibles and framed miracle posters. But behind one shelf, Peter noticed a small iron box. He dragged it out carefully and opened it. Inside were several white garments folded neatly, each with brown stains, dried candles, and photographs of people with red X marks drawn across their faces. Peter's voice dropped. "Madam, do you recognize these?" Grace stepped back, shaking her head. "No, I've never seen that before." He sighed, covered the box, and called in a cameraman. "Evidence. Bag everything." As they left, Grace sank onto the sofa, pressing her palms to her chest. Her heart felt like a ticking bomb. She wanted to believe her husband, but the pieces didn't fit. The Daniel she knew was gentle, prayerful, generous, but maybe that was only one side of him. Outside, a crowd of curious neighbors had gathered again, whispering. "You see?" Even Police Don reached there. Another woman spat on the ground. "Now those big pastors, they use bloodshine their church." Grace shut the door quickly and sank to the floor. Her house, once filled with worship music, now echoed only with shame. That evening, heavy rain washed the streets of Warri. Inside the station, Daniel sat on the cold floor of his cell. The other prisoners kept their distance from him, whispering, "Nah, the passed away they do ritual." Someone laughed and threw a piece of bread at him. Daniel ignored them. He knelt down and prayed softly, "Father, forgive me, deliver me." But his voice cracked halfway, and for the first time, he felt like his prayers were hitting a ceiling. The light flickered above his head, and he thought he heard a whisper in the darkness. "You think they will believe you?" He froze. The cell was empty. Yet the voice came again, low and mocking. "You made promises you couldn't keep. Now you pay the price." He covered his ears and shouted, "Get out! Leave me alone." The prisoners stirred. "This man done craze," one said, but Daniel couldn't stop shaking. The voice of guilt had found him, and there was nowhere to hide. Meanwhile, Detective Henry sat in his office, watching the rain beat against the window. The file lay open before him. 5 names written in red ink. Matthew Benson, Pauline Okoro, Blessing Ao, Francis John, and Jiro Oba, all reported missing within 2 months. The match was too clean, too perfect. He took a slow drag from a cigarette and whispered, 5 names, 5 heads, 1 pastor. His junior officer, Peter, walked in, holding a photo from the search. Sir, we found this in his study. Looks like ritual markings. Henry studied it and sighed. I knew it. No ordinary man hides this kind of thing. He closed the file and stood. Prepare tomorrow's interrogation. And tell the press nothing. Warri no need more fire tonight. At midnight, lightning flashed across the city. Inside the Cole mansion, Grace lay awake beside her sleeping son. The walls creaked. Wind moaned through the broken window. She whispered, God, if Daniel truly did this, show me a sign. Just then, the bulb flickered, and the mirror across the room cracked with a faint pop. Grace gasped and jumped up. The air felt thick and strange. She clutched her Bible and began to pray, her voice shaking. Every power of darkness, lose your hold on my home. Outside, thunder roared again, drowning her words. Somewhere in the distance, dogs barked as if chasing shadows. By morning, Warri had a new headline. Pastor Daniel Cole to be charged for ritual killings. Police confirm evidence. People gathered around newsstands, arguing, shouting, laughing. For every believer, there were 10 skeptics. For every cry of innocent, there were 20 of guilty. And in the midst of it all, a small voice whispered in Grace's heart, the truth will destroy you before it sets you free. The next morning broke quietly over Warri, but inside the Cole family mansion, peace was dead. Grace Cole sat at the edge of her bed, her eyes swollen, a Bible trembling in her hands. The sound of rain dripping from the zinc roof mixed with distant noise from the streets, voices, car horns, and the ever-repeating news jingle that had become her nightmare. Popular Warri pastor, Daniel Cole, remains in police custody following the shocking discovery of 5 human heads found in his car. The female reporter's voice stabbed through the small television like a knife. Grace reached out and switched it off, her fingers shaking. She didn't need to hear it again. She could still hear the crowd from the day before, still see her husband kneeling in the dust, still smell the shame that followed her everywhere she turned. She stood up slowly, went to the window, and peeped through the blinds. Outside her gate, 3 journalists were already standing, holding cameras and microphones. A white van marked Delta Broadcast Network idled nearby. One of the men pointed toward the gate and said loudly, "That's her house. The wife never come out since yesterday." Another laughed and replied, "She go come out soon. Nah shame day hold her." Grace shut the curtains, her heart pounding. Every step she took felt like walking through fire. Her phone rang again, an unknown number. She almost ignored it, but the ringing didn't stop. With a trembling hand, she picked it up. "Hello?" "Grace," the voice said softly. It was Mary Johnson, one of the senior women from church. "Mary," Grace whispered, relief washing over her. Thank God someone called. But the next words froze her blood. "Grace, the church elders say you should not come to service again until everything clears. They say the police might come there next. People are talking, my sister. They say your husband has been doing evil things. I told them it's a lie, but—" "Mary, stop," Grace said weakly. "Please don't say any more. I just thought you should know. They are calling emergency prayers. Half the members already left. The church building is locked." Grace sank onto the couch, her voice breaking. "My husband built that church with his sweat. He prayed for those people. And now they turn against him so quickly." Mary sighed. "Worry no day carry last, my sister. People believe what they see. I'll keep praying for you." The line went dead. Grace dropped the phone and stared at the ceiling. The walls felt smaller than before. She could hear whispers even when the room was empty. Every sound became a judgment. Every breath was guilt. Her son Michael tiptoed in, clutching his school bag. "Mummy, are we not going to school?" She looked at his innocent face and forced a smile. "No, baby, you'll stay home today." "Why?" "My teacher said we should bring our Bible." She blinked back tears. We will read our Bible here. There was a knock at the door. She froze. The knock came again, louder this time. "Madam Grace Cole," a man's voice shouted. "Open up. Police." She rushed to the door and opened it slowly. Detective Henry Jacobs stood there, holding a folder. Behind him were two uniformed men. He removed his cap and nodded slightly. "Good morning, madam." Grace's voice was barely a whisper. "Detective, please tell me this is all a mistake." Henry sighed. "I wish it were, ma'am, but the evidence keeps growing. We just came to collect some items from your husband's room for further analysis." Grace moved aside quietly. "Do whatever you need to do." Henry walked in, scanning the house. He stopped briefly at the family portraits. Pictures of Daniel preaching to thousands. Holding a microphone, his hands stretched toward the sky. He looked powerful in every frame. Now those same pictures felt like mockery. Henry turned back to Grace. "Madam, I need to ask you something personal. Has your husband been acting strange lately?" Grace hesitated. "Strange how?" "Any sudden changes? Night movements, new friends, secret calls, or money you can't explain?" Grace rubbed her palms together nervously. "He sometimes went out at night. He said it was for midnight prayers with other pastors. I never questioned him." Henry nodded slowly. "Did he ever bring anything unusual home?" She shook her head, tears rising again. "Only envelopes from people he prayed for. He said it was Thanksgiving money." Henry closed his folder gently. "Madam Grace, I'm not here to shame you, but this case runs deep. The things we found in his study, those robes, the photographs, they suggest more than just prayers." Grace's knees gave way. She sank into a chair, covering her face. "Oh my God, what did he do? My husband wouldn't hurt a fly." Henry looked at her with quiet pity. "Sometimes, madam, the devil wears a white collar. I'll keep you informed." He signaled his men, and they walked out quietly. As soon as the gate shut, Grace broke down completely. Her sobs filled the house like thunder. She clutched her chest and screamed into her palms. "Why, Daniel? Why did you bring this shame on us?" Outside, one of the journalists pointed a camera at the gate. "She day cry," he whispered excitedly. "Get the shot, quick." The red light blinked as they filmed her tears through the window. By afternoon, the story had reached every corner of Delta State. Warri Times printed bold headlines. "Pastor's wife in tears as evidence piles up." The accompanying picture showed Grace, eyes swollen, looking through her curtain. At O'Kear Market, women gossiped in loud tones. "I talk him sense. Any passed away get 6 cars. He no fit clean," said a fish seller. Another added, "No be today, he start. I hear say he day do power for one river from midnight. A beg leave matter. Warri pastors to get drama." Every conversation carried the same mix of disbelief and satisfaction. People love when the mighty fall. It gives them something to talk about at lunch. That evening, Grace tried to step out to buy food, but the moment she opened her gate, flashlights and cameras blinded her. "Mrs. Cole, did you know about your husband's rituals? Did he ever confess to killing anyone? How do you feel being married to a murderer?" Her voice cracked. "Please, leave my family alone." The crowd pressed closer. Someone shouted, "She go follow Am, nah a couple ritualists." A bottle smashed against the gate. Grace screamed and ran back inside, bolting the door. Her son began to cry. She gathered him in her arms, rocking him back and forth. "Don't listen, baby. Don't listen." That night, she couldn't sleep. The rain returned, beating hard against the zinc roof. She sat on the living room floor, Bible open, candles lit, praying in whispers. "Father, if there is still mercy left in heaven, let the truth come out. Let my husband be free if he's innocent. But if he's guilty, Lord, have mercy on his soul." Thunder rolled across the night, and she thought she heard a faint sound in the passage, like footsteps. She turned sharply, heart racing. Who's there? Silence. The candle flickered. She stood up slowly, her wrapper trailing on the floor, and walked toward the corridor. The air felt cold. She stopped by the study door. It was locked, but a soft tapping sound came from inside, like fingernails on wood. She took a deep breath and whispered, "Daniel?" No reply. She reached for the handle again, but it didn't move. The tapping stopped. Then a low hum began, like someone singing a hymn under their breath. Grace ran back into the living room, slammed the door, and fell to her knees. "Jesus, Jesus, Jesus," she whispered, clutching the Bible. Her body shook. She didn't know if she was losing her mind or if something dark still lingered in that house. At the police station, Detective Henry stayed late, flipping through more files. Officer Peter Miles walked in, holding a phone. "Sir, we got the autopsy report. The heads belong to 5 different people, ages between 14 and 35. All victims disappeared between July and September." Henry nodded. "And the pastor?" "He's still silent. Keeps saying a man gave him the bag. No name, no address." Henry leaned back in his chair. "He's protecting someone or something." Peter hesitated. "Sir, what if it's not just human? People are saying there's something spiritual involved." Henry smirked. "Peter, we deal with evidence, not spirits. Let the pastors cast demons. We'll follow the clues." Still, his voice carried doubt. Even he felt a chill whenever he looked at Daniel's eyes. They seemed empty, like the man inside had left long ago. He closed the file and stood. "Tomorrow we interrogate again. And call that assistant of his, the young man, Samuel. I want to hear what he knows." Back at the Cole house, Grace finally drifted into restless sleep near dawn. In her dream, she saw Daniel standing by the church altar, his hands dripping with blood, smiling as the congregation clapped. Behind him, 5 headless shadows bowed before a strange light. She woke up screaming. Sweat poured down her face. The morning sun filtered weakly through the curtains. Her son was still asleep beside her. She stared at the Bible lying open on the floor, its pages stuck together by candle wax. Her voice trembled as she whispered, "Lord, please don't let this be true." Across Warri, posters that once carried the pastor's smiling face were being torn down. Members deleted his sermons from their phones. The Divine Mountain of Firelight Ministry signboard now leaned sideways, its paint peeling in the rain. A few loyal women still gathered there in the evenings to cry and pray, but most had moved on. For them, Pastor Daniel was finished. But Grace couldn't give up. Not yet. She tied her scarf, wiped her face, and walked to the police station under the hot afternoon sun. The guards at the gate looked surprised to see her. "Madam, you sure you want to enter?" Press people full everywhere. "I need to see my husband," she said firmly. Inside, the noise was overwhelming. Reporters shouted questions. Police phones rang nonstop. Henry saw her coming and gestured for quiet. "Mrs. Cole, are you sure about this?" "He's not in a good state." "I need to look him in the eyes," she replied. "I need to hear from him myself." Henry led her down the corridor. The metal door creaked open, revealing Daniel sitting on the edge of his bunk, staring blankly at the wall. His once bright face looked pale and sunken. His lips moved as if praying. "Daniel," Grace's voice broke. "Tell me it's not true." He looked up slowly, eyes red. "Grace," he whispered, "I swear before heaven, I didn't kill anyone. They set me up. Someone wants to destroy me." Grace stepped closer. "Then who? Tell me who did this." He covered his face. "I can't say. If I talk, they will kill you and Michael." She gasped. "Who will kill us?" He looked at her with trembling lips. "The ones I made covenant with." Henry, standing at the door, froze. "What did you just say?" Daniel shut his eyes tight, whispering, "Please, I need a pastor. I need to pray." Grace burst into tears. The man she married was slipping into madness before her eyes. Henry gave a silent signal, and the guard gently led her out. As she walked out of the station, the cameras flashed again, reporters shouting her name. But this time, she didn't hide. She raised her head high, her face streaked with tears. If this was the cross she had to carry, she would carry it with dignity. Behind her, inside the cell, Daniel's voice echoed faintly. "Lord, if they find out the truth, I'm finished." That night, Warri slept uneasily. The rain returned heavier than before. flooding the gutters and washing away dirt from the streets. But no rain could wash away the blood on that pastor's name. And in the dark corner of his prison cell, Pastor Daniel began to laugh softly, low, bitter, and strange. Somewhere between guilt and madness, he whispered, "It's not over yet." Warri woke up restless that morning. The air smelled of wet dust and tension, the kind that sits on the tongue and refuses to leave. Every radio, every shop, every corner seemed to carry one topic: the pastor who was caught with human heads. At the police headquarters, reporters had already gathered before sunrise, waiting for a statement that could feed the next round of gossip. Inside, Detective Henry Jacobs sat behind his desk, staring at a single sheet of paper, the list of missing people connected to the case. 5 names, 5 families, 5 stories waiting for justice. He rubbed his eyes and sighed. It had been 3 days since the arrest, and the city still had not calmed down. Warri people go turn everything to show, he muttered under his breath. But this one no be movie. His door opened and Officer Peter Miles stepped in, holding a small folder. "Sir, Samuel Adams is here," he said. Henry straightened up, his expression sharpening. "The church assistant?" Peter nodded. "Yes, sir. He say he want talk, but he dey shake." Henry gestured to the chair opposite him. "Bring him in." Samuel entered quietly, his steps hesitant, his eyes darting around the office, as if the walls were listening. He was a tall, slender young man in his mid-20s, wearing a faded shirt that once carried the church logo, Divine Mountain of Firelight Ministry. He looked like a man trapped between loyalty and fear. Henry motioned for him to sit. "Samuel, relax. Nobody's here to hurt you. We just need the truth." Samuel swallowed hard, his fingers twisting in his lap. "Olga, I swear, I don't even know where to start." "Start from the beginning," Henry said softly. "How long have you worked for Pastor Daniel Cole?" "Almost 5 years, sir," Samuel replied. "Since when the church small, when we day use rented hall near Jackpa Junction." Henry leaned forward. "Tell me about your pastor. What kind of man is he?" Samuel hesitated, looking down. He was a good man, or maybe he used to be, but something changed last year. He became different. Different how? Henry pressed. He stopped sleeping at night. Every midnight, he'd call me to come open the church. He'd pray alone for hours, sometimes shouting strange things. When I asked, he said I wasn't spiritual enough to understand. One night, he told me not to tell anyone what I saw or heard, that God would punish me if I did. Henry's eyes narrowed. "And what did you see, Samuel?" The young man's voice trembled. He brought people to the church after midnight, men I'd never seen before. They'd stay in the dark part of the altar and chant. I once saw him pour red liquid into a bowl and smear on the floor. When I asked him about it, he said it was anointing oil mixed with sacrifice wine. Henry exchanged a look with Peter. "Sacrifice wine," he repeated. Samuel nodded quickly. "Yes, sir. That's what he called it." I was scared. I wanted to leave the church, but he told me that if I left, I'd never prosper again, that he'd pray my destiny away. Henry leaned back, his jaw tight. "And the night before his arrest, did you see him?" "Yes, sir. Around 4 a.m. He came to the church. He told me to help him carry 2 big black nylon bags into his car. He said they were charity gifts for widows. I didn't argue. But, sir, those bags were heavy. And something inside shifted like bone." Henry's voice lowered. "So you carried those bags yourself?" Samuel's eyes filled with tears. "Yes, sir. I didn't know. I swear to God, I didn't know what was inside." Henry stood and walked slowly to the window. Outside, the rain had started again, soft but steady. He turned back, his tone cold but calm. "Samuel, you may have helped your pastor without knowing, but now you must help yourself. You're the only witness we have inside that church. If there's more to this, we need it now." Samuel wiped his face. "Sir, there's one more thing." Henry paused. "Go on." "The week before he was arrested, I saw him bury something behind the altar. It was wrapped in white cloth. When he left, curiosity pushed me to check. I dug a little, and, sir, I saw a small human hand." Peter gasped. Jesus Christ. Samuel nodded quickly, voice shaking. I covered it back and never spoke. That night, I packed my things. I wanted to run, but I heard on the radio the next day that he had been arrested. Maybe God saved me. Henry's hand tightened on the edge of the table. You did well to come here, but you must understand the road ahead will be dangerous. People who do things like this don't work alone. You'll need protection. Samuel nodded weakly. I don't care, sir. I just want peace. Henry closed his notebook. You'll get it, but before that, you'll write everything you just said and sign it. This statement may decide his fate. As Samuel began writing, Henry looked toward the evidence board on the wall. Photographs of the 5 victims, the church building, the black SUV, and Daniel's face staring blankly from a mugshot. Something about that expression bothered him. It wasn't fear. It was defiance, like a man who believed no cell could hold him. That same afternoon, Grace sat alone in her house, clutching her rosary. The curtains were drawn, but the noise outside still slipped in. Neighbors gossiping, cars honking, children shouting. Fake passed her as they ran past. Her house had become a prison without bars. She hadn't stepped outside since the day of the raid. Food was running out. Her son Michael asked for bread, but she had none left. When she opened her purse, she found only a few crumpled Naira notes. Her phone vibrated again. It was her sister Martha calling from Benin. Grace. Jesus Christ, what kind of wall is this? I saw everything on TV. How can your husband be inside this kind of mess? Grace's voice broke. Martha, please, I can't even talk again. The whole world is pointing fingers at me. You can't stay in that house alone, Grace. Come to Benin with your boy. Let the storm pass first. Grace sighed deeply. I can't leave. If I run, people will think I'm guilty too. Grace, listen to me. This thing no be ordinary. I had a dream last night. I saw your husband chained inside fire, calling your name. You and that boy need to leave. Grace's breath caught. Martha, please don't scare me. I'm not scaring you. I'm warning you. Pack your bags. Tonight, if possible. Before Grace could reply, the line cut off. Her hands trembled as she dropped the phone. Outside, thunder grumbled again. The air felt heavy, like the city itself was holding its breath. At the police station that evening, Henry sat opposite Pastor Daniel once again. This time, the pastor looked calmer, almost peaceful. His eyes were clear, his voice steady. Detective, he said quietly, I see you've spoken to my assistant. Henry studied him. You know about that? Daniel smiled faintly. God reveals things to his servants. Henry leaned forward. Then let's stop playing prophet and talk man to man. You were seen with 2 bags that night. You claim a man gave them to you, but we both know that's a lie. Who are you protecting? Daniel's lips curved slightly. You won't understand. There are powers beyond your badge, detective. Powers that control kings and nations. Henry's patience thinned. I don't care about your powers. I deal with truth. Daniel's voice dropped lower. Then prepare yourself for war, because truth doesn't live where you think it does. Henry slammed his palm on the table. You murdered 5 people, Pastor. 5 innocent souls. For what? Money? Fame? Or some twisted miracle? Daniel didn't flinch. He only looked at him with a faint smile. Detective, if you knew what those heads were for, you wouldn't be sleeping in that uniform. Henry frowned. What do you mean? Daniel leaned forward, whispering. They were not sacrifices. They were vessels. Henry felt a chill run through him. Vessels for what? Daniel's smile widened. For power. For resurrection. The world you see is not the world that is. Henry stood abruptly. Enough of your madness. He called to the guards. Take him back to the cell. As they led Daniel away, he turned his head slightly and said, You can lock me in, but you cannot lock out the spirits. They've already started moving. Henry's hand froze midair. For a moment, he almost believed the man. Then he shook it off. He's playing games, he muttered. But deep down, something about the pastor's confidence unsettled him. Night came fast over Warri. The streets glistened with leftover rain. At the Cole mansion, Grace packed a small bag quietly while her son slept. Her sister's warning replayed in her mind. But before she could zip the bag, the lights flickered. She froze. The radio that had been silent all day suddenly came on by itself, crackling through static. A voice, eerily familiar, echoed faintly, her husband's preaching voice. Power belongs to those who are willing to pay the price. Grace dropped the bag and covered her mouth. Jesus, she whispered. The radio hissed and died. The house fell silent again. She ran to her son's room, picked him up, and whispered, "We're leaving tonight." She didn't care where. Anywhere but here. She opened the back door and stepped into the wet night, clutching her son close. The wind howled through the compound. As she reached the gate, she looked back once and swore she saw a shadow move behind the curtain in the living room. She ran. At the same time, inside his cell, Daniel knelt on the floor, eyes closed, muttering strange words under his breath. His voice grew louder with each second. The other prisoners watched nervously. One shouted, "Hey, Pastor, wouldn't you dare talk there?" Daniel ignored them, his tone deep and rhythmic. "Let the veil break. Let the covenant stand." Suddenly, the light above his head flickered violently. The bulb burst with a loud pop, plunging the cell into darkness. The prisoner screamed. From somewhere in the corridor, a policeman shouted, "What's going on in there?" Daniel opened his eyes slowly. They glowed faintly in the dark. He smiled and whispered, "The spirit moves where it pleases." At dawn, the power returned. Henry arrived to find half the station in chaos. The guards claimed they heard voices in the night, chanting, whispering, crying. The camera inside Daniel's cell had gone dead at exactly midnight. When they checked the footage later, all they saw was static and a faint shadow moving across the screen. Henry clenched his jaw. "This case just got darker," he said quietly. He turned to Peter. "Find Grace. Make sure she's safe. If this man is involved with anything beyond reason, his family might be next." Peter nodded and hurried out. Henry sat down heavily, staring at the photo of the smiling pastor again. "Popular pastor caught with 5 human heads," he muttered. "But maybe it's not just the heads we should be afraid of." Outside, the morning sun rose weakly over Warri, casting long shadows on the wet streets. And somewhere in the distance, a church bell rang, not for worship, but for warning. The rain had stopped, but Warri still smelled of thunder. Puddles shone under the streetlights as Grace walked barefoot through the narrow streets of Okamagba Avenue, her son Michael wrapped in a small shawl, his head resting on her shoulder. Every sound made her jump: the bark of a dog, the groan of a passing tricycle, the hum of generators waking up after the storm. She didn't know where she was going. She just knew she had to keep walking. Behind her, the house she once called home loomed like a ghost, and in her heart, something whispered that she might never return. She found shelter under the small canopy of a provision shop. The woman sweeping in front of it looked up in surprise. "Madam Grace?" she asked softly. Grace froze. The woman was Joy Benson, one of the market women who used to attend her husband's church before the scandal broke. Joy dropped her broom, eyes wide. "Jesus, you still day for Warri?" Grace's lips trembled. "Please, Joy, don't shout. I just need somewhere to stay tonight." Joy looked around nervously, lowering her voice. "People go talk if dem see you here. But you fit stay small for my back room. My children they sleep, but I go arrange mat for you." Grace's eyes filled with tears. "God bless you, Joy." Joy sighed and opened the door quietly. "Come before a person see you." Warri mouth no get cover. Inside, the small room smelled of soap, dried fish, and warm oil. Grace laid her son on the mat and covered him with her wrapper. Joy sat beside her, shaking her head. "Grace, I still no fit believe say your husband do that kind thing. I day your church that day when he prayed for my sick son, and the boy wake up fine. How man way fit do miracle go turn to ritualist?" Grace rubbed her palms together. "I don't know what to believe anymore. Maybe I was blind. Maybe the man I called my husband was someone else entirely." Joy hesitated before speaking again. People day talk say the police find strange things in the church basement. You hear him. Grace frowned. What things? Joy leaned closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. One of my customers say her cousin day among the police waste searched the place. She talk say dem see blood marks for wall, and one small wooden coffin under the altar. Grace's mouth fell open. That's not true, that can't be true. Joy raised a hand. Now, when I hear, my sister, but make you rest. You look like person way never chopped since yesterday. Grace managed a weak smile. Thank you, Joy. You're the only one who has shown me kindness. Joy nodded slowly. No be everybody go believe gossip. Some of us still get hard. They sat in silence for a while as the rain started again, soft but steady. In the corner of the room, a small candle flickered, throwing shadows across the wall. Grace watched them dance and felt an unease she couldn't name. She remembered the strange voice from the radio, the hymn that played by itself, and shivered. Somewhere deep down, she feared that her husband's sins were not only physical, they were spiritual. The next morning, Detective Henry Jacobs was already at the Warri police station, his eyes red from lack of sleep. He stood before a large board covered in photographs and notes. Every detail of the case was pinned there. Pictures of the victims, maps of the church compound, sketches of the black SUV. But something still didn't add up. Peter, he said, rubbing his temples, have we found anything from a forensic team? Peter shook his head. Not yet, sir. But the blood samples from the church wall match one of the missing victims, Matthew Benson. Henry exhaled deeply. So it confirmed. The church was used for something dark. Peter hesitated. Sir, there's more. The lab also found traces of animal blood mixed with human. Cow, goat, and something they can't identify. Henry frowned. Something they can't identify? Yes, sir. The analyst said it's not from any known species. Henry leaned back slowly, eyes narrowing. We're not dealing with ordinary killers. Just then his phone rang. He picked it up quickly. Detective Jacob speaking. Sir, it's Officer Patrick from Ennerin Checkpoint. You won't believe this. We found another body near the old bridge, wrapped in white cloth exactly like the others. And, sir, the voice dropped lower. It has no head. Henry's blood ran cold. Secure the area. I'm on my way. He grabbed his coat and turned to Peter. This case just opened another chapter. At the same time, Grace and Joy sat quietly in the small room, sharing bread and tea. Michael slept beside them, his small face peaceful for the first time in days. Joy looked at Grace carefully. What you go do now? Grace sighed. I don't know. I want to visit the police station today. I need to see Daniel again. Joy frowned. You sure? That place full of press. They go disgrace you. I don't care, Grace replied. I just want answers. Joy nodded reluctantly. Okay, but no go alone. I get friend way fit drop you with motor. The mankind. Thank you, Grace said softly. A few minutes later, Grace stepped out, holding her son's hand. The street was busy, full of people going about their day, pretending they hadn't all seen her husband's face on television. As she walked past a kiosk, she noticed a group of men watching her closely. One whispered, "Now the pastor wife be that." Another hissed, "She go follow him. No be only Pastor Day do evil." Grace quickened her pace. She could feel their eyes burning holes in her back. Detective Henry arrived at the crime scene near the Ennerin Bridge. The smell hit him first. Thick, metallic, and unbearable. The body lay half submerged in muddy water, wrapped in white linen smeared with blood. Police officers stood around, some covering their noses, others whispering. Henry crouched down and opened the cloth slowly. What he saw made his stomach twist. The body was missing a head, just like the victims in Pastor Daniel's car. But carved into the chest were strange symbols, circular and sharp-edged, like something drawn from an ancient book. Henry looked up sharply. Who found this? A young officer raised his hand. Sir, one fisherman calls early morning. He say he sees something floating near the riverbank. Henry pointed at the carvings. Take pictures, every detail. I want the symbol analyzed immediately. Peter bent beside him. Sir, you think Pastor Daniel did this too? Henry shook his head slowly. If he's behind this, then he's not working alone. Someone or something is helping him. Back at the station, as Henry reviewed the photos, Samuel Adams was brought in again for questioning. His hands shook as he sat down. Sir, I heard there's another body. Is it true? Henry nodded. Yes, and it looks like the same pattern as the others. I need you to tell me everything about what went on in that church. Every night prayer, every visitor, every secret. Samuel hesitated, then lowered his voice. Sir, there was one man who used to come late at night. Tall, dark, always wearing a black robe. Pastor called him the elder. He never spoke to anyone else. But after each visit, Pastor Daniel would lock himself in the office for hours. The next day, he'd come out glowing, like he just came from heaven. Henry leaned closer. Do you know where to find this man? Samuel shook his head. No, sir. I only know that every time he came, Pastor would send me home early. But one night, I stayed behind secretly. I saw the elder give Pastor something wrapped in white cloth. Pastor kissed it before putting it in his drawer. Henry's pen froze. And what was inside that cloth? Samuel's lips trembled. A skull, sir. A human skull. Henry stood abruptly, anger burning through him. You mean to tell me your pastor kept a skull in his office? Samuel nodded quickly, tears forming. I swear, sir, I'm not lying. He said it was a source of inspiration, that whenever he prayed to it, miracles happened. Henry paced across the room. We need to find this elder. If he exists, he may be the key to everything. He turned to Peter. Put out a search. Check church visitor logs, CCTV, anything, and put a man to watch Samuel. He's a target now. That night, Grace finally arrived at the police station. The reporters had left for the day, leaving only a few officers at the gate. She walked in quietly, her heart pounding. Henry saw her and stood. Mrs. Cole, I wasn't expecting you. She bowed her head. I need to see my husband again. Henry hesitated. He's not in a good state. He hasn't eaten. He's been praying nonstop since morning. Grace's eyes filled with pain. Please, just 1 minute. Henry nodded slowly and led her down the hallway. The smell of disinfectant filled the air. When they reached the cell, Daniel sat cross-legged on the floor, his eyes closed, whispering softly. Grace knelt by the bars. Daniel, she said quietly. His eyes opened slowly. They looked hollow, distant. Grace, he whispered, why are you here? She reached through the bars, touching his hand. I need to hear the truth from you. Did you do those things they said? Daniel stared at her for a long moment. Then he said softly, Grace, I want to protect you, but the power I saw came with a price. I thought I could control it. I was wrong. Grace's breath caught. Daniel, what have you done? He lowered his head. I made a covenant with the elder. He promised growth, miracles, fame. All he asked for was obedience. But when I tried to break free, he said, I must replace myself with others. Grace's voice broke. Daniel, you sacrifice people? Tears slipped down his face. I didn't kill them myself. The elder brought them. He said they were already chosen. I only prayed as he commanded. Grace staggered back, covering her mouth. Oh, God, you let him use you. Daniel gripped the bars. Grace, listen. The elder isn't human. He comes in dreams, in mirrors, in shadows. He owns me now. Henry, who had been standing quietly, felt a chill crawl down his spine. Who is this elder? Give me a name, a place. Daniel shook his head violently. No. If I speak, he will come for all of us. Henry slammed the bars. He already has, Pastor. People are dying. Daniel's body trembled, his lips moving soundlessly. Then suddenly, his eyes rolled back, and he collapsed to the floor. Grace screamed. Henry called for help, and 2 officers rushed in. They lifted Daniel gently, his pulse faint but steady. Get the medic now. Henry shouted. As they carried him away, Grace stood frozen, her heart breaking. She turned to Henry, her voice shaking. "Detective, he's telling the truth. I saw things in that house that I can't explain. Please protect my son." Henry nodded slowly. "I will, but I need you to trust me completely now." She nodded weakly, her tears falling freely. "I don't have anyone else to trust." That night, as the ambulance drove Daniel to the hospital, the sky over Warri grew dark again, the clouds heavy with thunder. Somewhere in the city, a tall figure dressed in black walked slowly through the rain, humming an old hymn that no one else remembered. In his hand, he held a small lantern, and inside it burned a blue flame that did not die with the wind. And in the hospital bed where Daniel lay unconscious, his fingers twitched, his lips forming a single word: Elder. By sunrise, the story had gone beyond Warri. Lagos, Abuja, Port Harcourt. Even foreign media began airing the shocking headline: "Popular Nigerian pastor arrested with human heads." Every radio station, every blog, every street corner had something to say. The pastor's face was everywhere. Some called him a monster. Others said it was a spiritual attack. The internet was unforgiving. Memes, hashtags, and fake prophecies filled the air like smoke. People no longer said good morning. They said, "Did you hear about that pastor?" Detective Henry Jacobs watched the news with tired eyes from his office at the Warri command. His coffee was cold, untouched. The pressure was now higher than ever. The Inspector General himself had called, warning that the case had national attention. Henry hated that phrase. National attention meant politics, influence, money, and fear. It meant powerful people would soon start calling to protect the guilty. Peter Miles walked in with a newspaper. "Sir, Vanguard and Tribune both published your name. They called you the detective fighting darkness." Henry gave a dry laugh. "Fighting darkness? They don't know what kind of darkness this is." He tossed the paper aside. "Any update on Pastor Daniel?" "He's still unconscious," Peter said. "The doctors say he might wake up today. His blood pressure was dangerously low." Henry nodded slowly. "Good. When he wakes, I want to be there. We need answers before someone else dies." Peter hesitated. "Sir, there's something else." The forensics team finished analyzing the strange symbol carved on the new victim's chest. "It matches the symbol we found inside the pastor's Bible, the same circle with 3 crosses and a serpent." Henry frowned. "Wait, what Bible?" "The one they took from his study. It was hidden behind the shelf. Forensics said the pages were soaked in something dark. They found fingerprints, his and someone else's." "Someone else's?" "Yes, sir, but they can't match it yet. It doesn't exist in any database." Henry's stomach tightened. "Which means whoever the other person is, they don't officially exist." He stood up. "Bring that Bible here." Peter returned minutes later with the sealed evidence bag. Henry wore gloves and unzipped it slowly. The Bible looked ancient. Its leather cover was cracked, and strange inscriptions were carved into the edges. Not like normal scripture. Inside, the first page was smeared with reddish stains. On the top corner, a single verse was underlined in trembling ink. "The dead shall serve as the foundation of the living." Beneath it, faint pencil marks formed a circular symbol, the same one on the victim's chest. Henry whispered, "What kind of pastor writes this?" Peter crossed himself quietly. "Sir, this thing no be ordinary, oh." Henry ignored him. He flipped through more pages until something slipped out, a small folded paper, yellow with age. He opened it carefully. It was a handwritten note that read, "When the covenant is broken, the elder will come in person. Beware the night of the blue flame." Henry's pulse quickened. He looked at Peter. "Get Grace Cole on the phone. Tell her to meet me here immediately." Meanwhile, Grace sat at Joy's small shop, helping her count goods. She had refused to return home since the night she fled. Her face was pale, her voice soft. "Joy, I had a dream again," she said quietly. "Daniel was standing by a river, calling me." Behind him, a man in black was smiling. "When I woke up, my pillow was wet, like I had been crying in my sleep." Joy crossed herself. "Grace, I know like this dream talk. You need prayer, serious one." Grace nodded weakly. "I don't even know who to trust again." Everyone's calling me a witch or a murderer's wife. Forget them, Joy said firmly. Now God go vindicate you. Just then, Grace's phone rang. A known number. She hesitated before answering. Mrs. Cole, this is Detective Jacobs. We need you to come to the station now. It's urgent. Her heart skipped. Is Daniel awake? Yes, and there's something you need to see. When Grace arrived at the station, the rain had started again, heavy and loud. Officers hurried across the compound with files under their shirts. She walked in, clutching her scarf tightly. Henry met her at the door. His face was grave. Thank you for coming, Mrs. Cole. Please sit. She looked around nervously. Detective, what's happening? Henry placed a Bible on the table, still inside the evidence bag. Do you recognize this? Her eyes widened immediately. Yes, that's Daniel's old Bible. He used it for private prayers. He never let anyone touch it. Do you know anything about this? He pointed to the note. Grace picked it up and read the words. Her hand began to shake. I've seen this handwriting before. It's not Daniel's. It belongs to a man who used to visit him last year. He called him Brother Malachi, but others called him Elder. Henry exchanged a look with Peter. Elder, he repeated. Tell me everything about him. Grace took a deep breath. He was tall, dark, always wearing black. He never smiled. He spoke softly. But when he looked at you, you felt cold. Daniel said he was a mentor from his early ministry days, a man of great power. I never liked him. The last time he came to our house, he gave Daniel a ring and said, As long as this ring shines, your name will never die. That night, Daniel couldn't sleep. He kept staring at the ring, whispering to himself. Henry asked, Do you still have a ring? Grace shook her head. No, the night before his arrest. I saw Daniel throw it into the toilet and flush it. He said it started burning his skin. Henry leaned back. So this elder was real. Grace nodded. Very real. But there's something else. A week before Daniel's arrest, I found a diary page in his drawer. It said, If the elder calls your name in the mirror, don't answer. I thought it was just madness. Henry's eyes darkened. Mrs. Cole, where's that page now? I tore it up and burned it. I was afraid. Henry sighed. All right, you did what you thought was right. But this case is deeper than any of us imagined. He stood up and looked out the window. Your husband may have started something he couldn't stop. Later that afternoon, the hospital called. Pastor Daniel had regained consciousness. Henry, Peter, and Grace rushed there immediately. The corridor smelled of antiseptic and wet clothes. Daniel lay on the bed, pale but awake. When he saw Grace, he smiled faintly. My wife, you came. She stepped closer, eyes full of tears. Daniel, please tell them everything. Tell them who the elder is. Daniel turned his head slowly toward Henry. Detective, you think this is a crime case, but it's not. It's a covenant case. The heads you found were offerings, not to kill, but to keep alive. Henry frowned. To keep you alive? Daniel's lips quivered. The elder, he feeds on spirits of the chosen. Without them, he fades. Henry's patience snapped. Pastor, you're talking in riddles. Give me facts, not demons. Daniel smiled weakly. You'll see him soon. He comes when the blue flame burns. Grace gasped. Blue flame. That's what was written in your Bible. Daniel looked at her with hollow eyes. It's tonight. Before Henry could ask another question, the lights flickered. The heart monitor beside the bed beeped wildly. The room went cold. The nurse screamed as the bulb above them shattered. A faint blue glow filled the air, shimmering like fire but cold as ice. Grace clutched Henry's arm. Jesus, what's that? Henry drew his gun instinctively. The glow pulsed once, then vanished. The monitor went flatline. Daniel's body stiffened. His mouth opened slightly, and a faint whisper escaped. He's here. Then he stopped breathing. The doctor rushed in, shouting orders, but it was useless. Pastor Daniel Cole was gone. Grace collapsed beside the bed, screaming his name. Henry stood frozen, staring at the now-dead body of the man who had been the center of every headline in Nigeria. For a long moment, The only sound in the room was the softest of the rain outside. That night, the entire country mourned and celebrated at once. Some said justice had been served. Others called it conspiracy. Hashtag trended again. Hashtag the wicked pastor is dead. But for Grace, there was no peace. She sat by the window of Joy's small room, staring at the dark sky. Her son slept beside her, clutching a pillow. Her heart was heavy, grief mixed with fear. Daniel's last words echoed in her mind. He's here. Suddenly, the bulb flickered. For a brief moment, the flame of the candle beside her turned blue. Grace froze. Then the radio in the corner crackled to life. Though it wasn't plugged in, a man's voice, deep and slow, spoke through the static. Grace Cole, you were chosen to continue the covenant. Her body went cold. She looked around frantically, whispering, "No, not me." The voice laughed softly. "When the shepherd falls, the flock must continue. The ring still calls your name." She looked at her wrist, and there it was, the ring Daniel had thrown away, now resting cold and shining on her finger. Grace screamed and tried to pull it off, but it wouldn't move. The candle flame turned bluer, brighter, until it cast eerie shadows on the walls. She grabbed her son and ran toward the door, banging it open. Joy came rushing from the next room, eyes wide. "What is it?" Grace held up her hand, trembling. "Joy, it's the ring. It's back." Joy stared at it, horrified. "Jesus Christ, Grace. Throw it away." "I can't." It stuck. They both screamed as thunder roared outside, shaking the building. The candle went out, plunging the room into darkness. From somewhere near the window came a soft, deep hum, the same hymn Daniel used to sing in church. Joy fell to her knees, praying loudly. "Blood of Jesus. Fire of God." Grace clutched her son tighter, tears running down her face. "Lord, save me, please." The wind outside howled like a voice answering back. And far away, deep in the heart of Warri, inside the abandoned church that once bore Daniel's name, a single lantern burned with a cold blue flame. By morning, Warri was on fire again, not with flames, but with talk. The streets hummed with gossip. Radios blasted breaking news. Pastor Daniel Cole reportedly dies in hospital after mysterious blue light incident. Every mouth had an opinion. In the market, women shook their heads and said it was divine punishment. Men at beer parlors argued loudly about curses and covenants. Children reenacted the story with plastic bottles, pretending to be policemen and fake pastors. Warri had found a new drama, and this one was better than any film. But for Grace Cole, there was no drama, only terror. She sat on the floor of Joy's small living room, clutching her hand, staring at the silver ring that refused to leave her finger. Its surface shimmered faintly, almost alive. Every few seconds, it pulsed with a dull blue glow, as though something inside it breathed. Joy hovered near the doorway, holding her Bible tightly, afraid to come too close. "Grace, that thing no be normal," she whispered. "You sure say no dream?" Grace shook her head, tears spilling freely. "Joy, I saw it appear with my own eyes. Daniel threw this ring away. I saw it with my eyes, I swear." Joy rubbed her arms. "You need deliverance, my sister. Real deliverance. This one past police matter." Grace looked up weakly. "But who can deliver me now? Every pastor I know has turned their back. They all call me cursed." "Then we go find new one." Joy said firmly. "There's one church at O'Kear Road, Prophet Amos. The man strong for prayer. People say when he shout, even witches run." Grace hesitated, then nodded. "Take me there." They left before noon, covering their heads with scarves to avoid attention. But even in disguise, whispers followed them. A man selling roasted corn pointed. "Nah, that pastor wife, oh." A woman spat on the ground. "Abomination. She go join her husband soon." Grace held Joy's arm tightly and kept walking. Her dignity was gone, her peace shattered. All she had left was survival. Prophet Amos Church was a modest building behind a mechanic workshop. The walls were cracked and the signboard leaned sideways, but the sound inside was fierce. Drums pounding, voices shouting. Holy Ghost fire. They stepped in quietly. The prophet stood on the small stage, tall and lean, wearing a red robe and holding a wooden staff. His eyes shone with the wild light of someone who believed he could wrestle spirits. When he saw Grace, he paused mid-prayer. "Ah, the wife of the late Pastor Cole," he said loudly. The congregation turned, gasping. Grace wanted to disappear. "Man of God," Joy said quickly, "we come for help. She no day sleep. Something day follow her." Prophet Amos nodded slowly, studying Grace like a doctor examining a strange wound. "You carry heavy load, my daughter. I can see it from here. The spirit of your husband no rest. The covenant is still open." Grace's lips trembled. "Please help me. I just want to be free." He lifted his staff. "Bring oil." A young woman ran up with a bottle of anointing oil. The prophet poured on Grace's head, chanting scriptures. The crowd began to clap and shout. The prophet pressed his hand to her forehead. "Spirit of darkness, I command you, leave her now." Grace gasped as her body shook violently. The ring on her finger burned hot, glowing brighter. She screamed, "It's burning me! It's burning!" Joy tried to grab her hand, but the prophet shouted, "Don't touch her!" He raised the staff higher. "Out, you unclean thing!" Then suddenly, the lights flickered. The drums stopped. A deep wind rushed through the room, though every window was closed. People screamed. The prophet stumbled backward, his robe fluttering. The ring on Grace's hand shone, like a blue flame. A voice, calm but powerful, echoed from nowhere, "She belongs to me." The congregation ran out screaming. The prophet fell to his knees, shaking. "Jesus, blood of Jesus." Grace dropped to the floor, weeping uncontrollably. "Please, whoever you are, leave me alone." The voice whispered again, closer this time. "You cannot run from what you accepted in marriage." Joy knelt beside her, crying, "Grace, we have to go. This place no safe again." The prophet, still trembling, pointed to the door. "Leave. That spirit go destroy my church. Go before it kill us all." They ran into the rain, soaked and terrified. Grace's head spun. She didn't know whether to scream or faint. At the Warri police command, Detective Henry Jacob stood before the commissioner of police, tried to explain the unexplainable. "Sir, I was there when the blue light appeared," he said. "There's no rational explanation for what happened. The lights burst, the room temperature dropped, and then he hesitated. And then he died." The commissioner leaned back, skeptical. "Jacobs, I respect you, but keep that spiritual talk for Sunday service. The press is already dragging us for incompetence. Now you're telling me ghosts killed the suspect." Henry clenched his jaw. "With all due respect, sir, this isn't just rumor. Forensics can't explain the energy spike in the hospital's power grid that night. Something happened, and now his wife is missing." "Missing?" the commissioner frowned. "Yes, sir. She left her hiding place last night. Her friend Joy said she's being followed. We need to find her before something else does." The commissioner sighed heavily. "You're getting obsessed, Jacobs. This is a closed case now. The suspect is dead. File your report and move on." Henry shook his head. "Sir, with all due respect, it's not over. Not when there's still blood on Warri's soil." He turned and left before the commissioner could reply. By evening, Grace and Joy found themselves in an abandoned guest house on Airport Road. They were drenched, hungry, and exhausted. The caretaker, an old man with tobacco-stained teeth, gave him a small room for cheap. "No light, no fan," he said, scratching his chin. "But at least you go get roof overhead." Grace managed a weak smile. "Thank you, sir." Inside, she sat by the broken window, staring at the ring again. It had stopped glowing, but it still felt warm against her skin. Joy sat across from her, praying quietly. "Father Lord, break every chain, every covenant, every curse. Destroy it tonight." Grace whispered, "Do you think Daniel's soul is at peace?" Joy hesitated. "I don't know, my sister, but if what he said true, that this elder no be human, then his spirit might still be fighting." Grace looked up sharply. "Fighting?" Joy nodded slowly. "My grandmother used to say, when evil men die, Their spirits don't rest. They hover until the debt is paid. Grace shuddered. Then maybe he's trying to warn me. Before Joy could answer, there was a knock at the door. 3 slow taps. Both women froze. "Who is that?" Joy whispered. No reply. Another 3 knocks. Louder. Grace stood, her voice trembling. "Who's there?" A deep voice answered, calm and steady. "Grace Cole." Joy's eyes widened. "Jesus. How he know your name?" Grace stepped back slowly, pulling her son closer. "What do you want?" The voice came again. "To finish what your husband began." Joy grabbed Grace's hand. "We need to run. Now." But before they could move, the door creaked open by itself. A gust of wind blew through, snuffing out the candle. The room plunged into darkness. Then, faintly, a blue light began to glow in the doorway. A tall shadow stood there, face hidden, cloak dripping rainwater. Joy screamed, "Blood of Jesus." She grabbed the Bible and began to shout prayers. The figure stepped forward slowly. "The covenant cannot die with one man," the voice said. "It must continue through his blood." Grace shook her head, crying, "No, I didn't make any covenant. Leave me alone." The figure tilted its head. "You wore the ring. The ring chooses. The ring binds." Joy threw the Bible at it and pulled Grace toward the window. "Jump. We know fit fight spirit." They climbed out as thunder roared overhead. Outside, the rain beat hard against their faces. Grace stumbled, clutching her son, running barefoot through the muddy road. Behind them, the guest house flickered with the same blue light, then went silent. At that very moment, Detective Henry sat in his car parked under the bridge, staring at the evidence box beside him. The strange Bible, the photos, the note about the blue flame. He had replayed Daniel's final words 100 times in his head. He's here. Something deep inside him said this wasn't over. He started the car and called Peter. "We're reopening the investigation, no matter what the commissioner says. I need you to find Grace Cole. Check every hospital, church, and guest house. She's not safe." Peter's voice crackled over the line. "Yes, sir, but be careful. I heard strange things. People say the pastor's body disappeared from a morgue this evening." Henry froze. "What did you just say?" The morgue attendant swore. He locked it up. But when they checked 2 hours ago, the body was gone. Vanished. Henry's chest tightened. "Send me the report. And Peter," he paused, "don't go near that church tonight." He hung up and stared out at the river, the rain pelting his windshield. In the distance, he thought he saw a faint blue flicker over the water. It disappeared as quickly as it came. By midnight, Grace and Joy found shelter in a small abandoned kiosk near Airport Junction. They were soaked to the bone. Michael slept in her lap, shivering. Joy sat beside her, whispering prayers. Grace stared blankly into the darkness. "If he's truly gone," she said softly, "why do I still feel him near?" Joy didn't answer. She was too tired to speak. But Grace kept talking, almost to herself. "Maybe he's fighting the elder. Maybe the light that killed him wasn't punishment. Maybe it was a warning." The wind howled, and for a second, she thought she heard Daniel's voice in it. Faint but clear. "Run, Grace. Run before it's too late." She stood up, heart racing. "Joy, we can't stay here. He's coming." Joy blinked in confusion. "Who?" Before Grace could reply, the ring pulsed again, once, twice, glowing bright blue in the dark. Joy screamed, "Grace, it's lighting again." And outside, from somewhere deep in the city, came the sound of church bells ringing, slow, hollow, and endless, though every church in Warri was closed. The elder had come to Warri. The next morning broke without sunlight. A heavy gray mist hung over Warri, thick like smoke, swallowing the streets. It was as if the city itself refused to wake. The gutters overflowed from the night rain, and the air smelled of fear. People whispered of strange things they had seen. A man in black walking along the river. Church bells ringing with no one inside. Some swore they saw blue fire burning on rooftops before dawn. But in Warri, rumors were like mosquitoes. You could swat one and 100 more would come. Detective Henry Jacobs hadn't slept. He sat in his car outside the police morgue, his face drawn, eyes red. He had been waiting for hours, trying to make sense of what the morgue attendant told him. Pastor Daniel's body had vanished. No broken lock, no blood trail, no witnesses. Just gone. The security camera footage cut off at midnight, replaced by static. When the power returned, the slab where the body had lain was empty. He stepped out of the car and walked into the building. The mortuary was cold and silent, except for the hum of the generators. The attendant, an old man named Baba Dave, stood shivering near the drawers. His hands trembled as he spoke. "Oga detective, I locked this place with my own hand. Only me get key. But around 12, I hear knock from inside." Henry frowned. "Knock? From inside where?" The old man pointed to the freezer. "From his drawer. I think maybe my ear day deceived me. I come close small, and I hear voice, soft, like person day pray. I run comet. When I return with my boys, he done vanish. Nah, so we see am." Henry stared at the empty slab. He didn't believe in ghosts, but something about the cold air in the room made his skin crawl. "You're sure no one came in?" Baba Dave shook his head. "Even if dem come, dem go need pass me first. But, Oga, see this thing?" He reached into his pocket and pulled out a torn piece of white cloth. It was stained red and had a symbol drawn on it, a serpent eating its tail. Henry took it carefully, his heart pounding. It was the same mark carved on the victims' chests. "Where did you find this?" "Right there on the floor," the old man said, pointing, "near where the body used to day." Henry's grip tightened. "Get everyone out of this building. Now!" At the same time, Grace sat in Joy's shop, her eyes sunken, her body weak. She hadn't slept in 2 nights. The ring still clung to her finger, dull now, but alive. Sometimes it felt cold as ice. Other times, it burned like fire. She wanted to cut her finger off, but each time she tried, her hands froze midair, as if controlled by something unseen. Joy tried to comfort her, but even she was terrified. The events at Prophet Amos Church had spread fast. The man of God had shut down his ministry, claiming he saw a spirit he could not bind. Now even the strong were afraid to pray for her. "Grace, you need to leave Warri," Joy said, her voice low. "The city don't reject you. Go far. Maybe Port Harcourt. Maybe even leave the country." Grace stared blankly. "How can I leave when something is following me? It doesn't matter where I go. He will still find me." Joy swallowed hard. "Who is he?" Grace's lips trembled. "The elder. Daniel told me about him before he died. He said he was the one who gave him power, the one who asked for the 5 heads. Joy's eyes widened. 5 heads? Why? Grace closed her eyes. "He said each head belonged to someone whose life was already marked. People who were supposed to die, but the elder claimed them early. Daniel told me that if he refused, the curse would pass to his blood." She opened her eyes slowly. "And now it's on me." Joy gasped softly. "God forbid. Grace, we go fight this thing." Before Grace could reply, her phone rang. Unknown number. She hesitated, then answered. "Mrs. Cole?" It was Detective Henry's voice. "We need to talk. Urgently. Can you meet me at the police headquarters?" Her voice shook. "Detective, I can't go there again. People will attack me. Then I'll come to you. Where are you?" Grace hesitated. "I can't say on the phone. Please, just promise me something." "What?" "If anything happens to me, take care of my son." The line went dead. Henry tried calling back, but it didn't connect. 2 hours later, the sky over Warri turned strange. Clouds swirled unnaturally, thick and fast, as though being stirred by invisible hands. People stopped in the streets, staring upward. The air was heavy electric. Somewhere deep within the city, the old church, Divine Mountain of Firelight Ministry, stood silent, its gates rusted, its signboard broken. Yet faint blue light flickered through the windows like ghostly fire. Inside, the wooden pews were covered in dust. The altar cloth was torn. Cobwebs hung like veils, and rats scurried through the shadows. But at the center of the altar stood a man, or what looked like one. He was tall, cloaked in black, his face hidden. His hands glowed faintly blue as he traced a circle on the floor with chalk. When he spoke, his voice filled the room and seemed to come from everywhere at once. The morning after the storm was heavy with silence. Not the calm kind, but the kind that carried memory. The kind that made even the wind too afraid to blow. The city of Warri looked as if it had witnessed a funeral the night before and was still holding its breath. People spoke in low tones. Some said the church exploded because of hidden gas. Others swore they saw angels and demons fighting in the sky. But nobody could explain the strange blue glow that lingered above the river at dawn. Detective Henry Jacobs sat alone on the church steps long after everyone had left. His clothes were still damp, his eyes red from lack of sleep. The tape around the church fluttered weakly in the wind. Police line. Do not cross. But no one wanted to cross it anyway. Those who passed by whispered prayers and moved quickly. They said evil still slept there. Henry rubbed his palms together, staring at the black feather he had kept inside a small evidence bag. When he picked it up earlier, it had burned with faint blue fire. Now it was cold, but something about it felt wrong, as if it was still watching him. He slipped it into his pocket and stood up. His phone buzzed. It was Officer Peter. "Sir, how's the woman?" Peter asked. "She's stable. The doctor said she might wake up today." "That's good news." "And the boy?" "Safe," Henry said. "He's with a friend, Joy. I told them to stay hidden." Peter hesitated. "Sir, I know you said we shouldn't touch anything from the church, but the tech team analyzed one of the floor samples. You need to see this." Henry frowned. "What did they find?" "The ashes. Sir, they're not human or material. They contain traces of bone, iron, and something they couldn't classify. The lab guy said it reacted to light. It moved." "Moved?" Henry repeated. "Yes, sir, like it's alive." Henry's blood ran cold. "Destroy it. Don't keep any of it in the station." "Yes, sir, but—" "Peter, listen to me. Burn it. Now." He hung up, wiping sweat from his forehead, though the morning air was cool. Something deep in his chest whispered that whatever they thought was over had only begun. Across town, in a small private hospital in Ekpan, Grace stirred weakly in her hospital bed. For the first time in days, her mind was quiet. She could hear the soft beeping of machines and smell disinfectant in the air. She blinked slowly, her body aching, her head heavy. When she turned, she saw Joy sitting beside her, dozing off with a Bible in her hand. Grace tried to speak, but her voice came out hoarse. "Joy." Joy woke with a start. "Grace, thank God you wake up." She grabbed her friend's hand, tears filling her eyes. "I think say you go die." Grace managed a faint smile. "No, Joy, I can't die yet. Not until I understand why all this happened." "Forget understanding, my sister," Joy said quickly. "Just rest. That man, that elder, he don't go. God don disgrace am." Grace turned her face toward the window. Outside, the sky was pale and empty. "You think he's gone," she whispered. "I don't feel free, Joy. I feel watched." Joy frowned, looking at her carefully. "Watched how?" "Every time I close my eyes, I see the river. I see Daniel standing there, holding out his hand. And behind him, something stands tall and dark. It doesn't move, it just watches me." Joy squeezed her hand. "Not trauma, Grace. Your mind day play trick. You go forget soon." But deep down, Joy didn't believe her own words. The air in that hospital room felt heavy, and sometimes she thought she saw the shadows shift when no one moved. By afternoon, Henry visited the hospital. Grace was sitting up now, her eyes tired but alert. He pulled up a chair beside her bed. "How are you feeling?" he asked. "Like someone borrowed my soul and forgot to return it," she said weakly. He gave a small, sympathetic smile. "You survived something no one could explain. That makes you stronger than most." She shook her head. "It doesn't feel like survival. It feels like delay." Henry leaned forward, Grace, I need to ask you one last time. Everything you know about the elder, anything Daniel might have hidden, any names, any places, I need it now. Grace thought for a moment, then whispered, Daniel kept journals, small black books. He never let anyone touch them. He used to hide them under the church altar. If the elder is still out there, his name will be in those pages. Henry stood immediately. I'll go back there myself. Grace grabbed his wrist weakly. Detective, don't go alone. That place isn't empty. He hesitated, then nodded. I'll take Peter. And Grace. She looked at him. If anything happens, call me. Day or night. She smiled faintly. You're the only one who still believes me. He nodded. Maybe because I've seen what you've seen. That evening, Henry and Peter returned to the burnt-out church. The smell of smoke and damp would hung thick in the air. The altar was half collapsed, the floor charred, but the faint blue symbol was still visible beneath the ashes. Henry knelt beside it, his flashlight trembling in his hand. This is where she fell, he muttered. If the journals are here, they're buried under this. Peter coughed, covering his nose. Sir, this place days smell like graveyard. Dig anyway, Henry ordered. They pried open the floorboards, scraping through layers of ash and dirt. After several minutes, Henry's spade hit something hard, metal. He knelt and brushed the dirt aside. It was a small iron box, half melted from the heat, but still intact. He forced it open, and inside were 3 small black notebooks, their edges burnt but readable. Peter whistled softly. Sir, you really find am. Henry nodded, pulling one out. The first page was covered in handwriting, Daniel's familiar scrawl mixed with strange symbols. He began to read aloud. The elder promised me greatness. He said power is not given, it is traded. The covenant requires 5 vessels, 1 for each sense. Sight, sound, touch, taste, breath. When the last is taken, he becomes flesh again. Henry's throat went dry. He becomes flesh again? Peter frowned. Sir, that means... Henry finished for him. He was never human to begin with. He flipped to another page. If the covenant is broken before completion, the chosen vessel will inherit the bond. The spirit will follow the bloodline until the ritual is done. Henry stared at the words, his heartbeat quickening. The bloodline, he looked at Peter. That means Grace. Or worse, her son. Peter's face went pale. Sir, you think the elder go come a boy? Henry closed the journal sharply. We can't take chances. Call the hospital now. At the same moment, Grace woke with a start. The lights in her room flickered violently. Joy was asleep in the chair beside her, snoring softly. Grace sat up slowly, heart pounding. The sound of running water filled her ears. She looked around. The sink was dry, the bathroom door shut, yet the sound grew louder, like waves crashing. She turned toward the window. Through the thin curtains, she saw something shimmering, water, flowing upward instead of down. Her breath caught. Slowly, she pulled the curtain aside. Outside, in the middle of the road, stood a tall figure cloaked in black. Blue mist swirled around it. It lifted its head, and though its face was hidden, she felt its gaze pierce through the glass. A deep voice filled her mind. The covenant must complete itself. Grace screamed. Joy woke with a jolt. What happened? He's here. Grace shouted, pointing. Joy ran to the window, but there was nothing there. The road was empty, only the faint shimmer of rain left behind. Grace, nobody day outside. Grace shook her head violently. He was there, Joy. The elder was there. Joy rushed to her side, holding her. You need prayer, not panic. But before she could say more, the lights went out completely. The machines beeped once and died. The entire hospital plunged into darkness. Nurses screamed down the hallway. Somewhere, glass shattered. Joy grabbed the candle on the table and lit it quickly. The flame burned blue. They both froze. Grace whispered, trembling, Blue flame, the night Daniel warned me about. Meanwhile, Henry's car raced through the empty streets toward the hospital. Rain started again, pouring in violent sheets. Peter held onto the dashboard, shouting over the noise. Sir, you sure we no need backup? There's no time, Henry said. If the elder wants the boy, he'll go through Grace first. When they reached the hospital, the lights were out. The front door hung open, swinging in the wind. Henry drew his gun and stepped inside. The corridors were dark, filled with the smell of ozone and fear. Nurses huddled in corners, whispering prayers. "Where's room 12? Henry shouted. One of them pointed shakily. Down the hallway. They ran. As they approached, Henry heard a low hum, the same deep sound he'd heard at the church before the explosion. He kicked the door open. Inside, Grace stood at the window, her eyes wide with terror. The air shimmered blue around her. Her son lay motionless on the bed. The elder's shape loomed faintly behind her, taller than before, almost translucent. Henry fired, but the bullets vanished into the glow. The elder's voice filled the room. "You cannot break what was written in blood." Henry shouted over the sound. "Grace, take the boy and run." She turned slowly, tears streaming. "I can't move. He's holding me." Henry dropped his gun and charged forward, grabbing her arm. The moment he touched her, pain shot through his body like fire. The elder hissed, and the window shattered. Lightning flashed through the room, striking the bed. The blue flame roared higher, swallowing everything in light. Henry screamed, but he didn't let go. "You're not taking her." And just as suddenly as it began, it stopped. The light vanished. The room went dark again. Henry was on the floor, his hands burned, his breathing shallow. The boy stirred faintly, coughing. Grace knelt beside him, crying, "He's alive, my baby's alive." The elder was gone. Only a faint whisper lingered in the air. "Until the river claims the last breath." Henry staggered to his feet. "Grace, take your son and go home. Tonight, don't look back." She looked at him fearfully. "What about you?" He smiled weakly. "Someone has to make sure he never comes back." Outside, the rain fell softer now, washing away blood, fear, and ashes. Grace held her son close as Joy led them toward a waiting taxi. In the distance, lightning flickered over the river, just once, in the shape of a serpent. And as the taxi drove off into the mist, Detective Henry stood alone outside the hospital, looking toward the Warri River. He could swear he saw ripples, as though something deep beneath the water had just awakened. The Warri River had always been a restless thing. It flowed like it carried secrets. Secrets older than the city itself. Fishermen said sometimes at night the water glowed faintly blue. They thought it was the moonlight. Others said it was the spirits of the drowned, still searching for peace. But this night, even the fishermen stayed away. The water was too still, too silent. Detective Henry Jacobs stood at the edge of the riverbank, his boots sinking into the wet sand. The air smelled of salt and storm. He had come alone. Behind him, the city was sleeping uneasily, unaware that darkness was stirring again. In his hand, he held the last of Daniel Cole's journals, the one that had been half burned. The pages were soaked from the rain, the ink smudged, but one line still stood out clearly. "When the covenant breaks, the bloodline and the seeker will meet where it began, at the river." That was why he was here. The river was where everything had started. It was here Daniel had first met the man called Elder. It was here 5 people had gone missing, their bodies later found headless. And it was here, Henry believed, the final piece of the curse waited. He shone his flashlight over the water. For a moment, everything seemed ordinary. Ripples, reeds, floating debris. Then, from somewhere deep beneath, a faint blue light flickered. He stepped closer, heart pounding. "If you're still out there," he said softly, "I'm not afraid of you." A cold wind rose suddenly, strong enough to snatch his cap off. The water began to churn, forming small whirlpools that spun faster and faster. Henry's light flickered. A voice, deep, ancient, and close, drifted through the air. "Fear is the first sacrifice, detective." Henry froze. He turned sharply, gun drawn, but there was no one, only the shadows of palm trees, swaying like tall, silent witnesses. The voice came again, now behind him. "You fight a battle that is not yours. The blood you protect already belongs to me. Show yourself." Henry shouted. The river exploded. Water shot up like a fountain, drenching him. Out of the mist rose a figure, tall, cloaked in black, the same unearthly glow pulsing under the hood. The elder. Henry stumbled backward, his breath catching. "You're supposed to be gone." The figure laughed softly, a sound that made the air vibrate. "Gone? I am older than your world. I cannot be destroyed by fire or bullet. I am bound to the covenant, and the covenant still breathes." Henry steadied his shaking hand, aiming his gun. "Then maybe I'll find another way to stop you." The elder stepped closer, the river rippling with each movement. "You think you're different from the pastor? You think righteousness makes you stronger?" He prayed, "You shoot. Yet both of you draw power from fear. You are all the same." "Not like him," Henry growled. "He killed innocent people. I protect them." The elder tilted his head. "Then protect the one I seek, if you can." Henry's heart thudded. "Grace." "The woman was only a vessel. I seek the child." "No," Henry whispered. "Yes," the elder replied calmly. "The blood of the fifth vessel was never claimed. The covenant remains open. The boy carries the father's mark." Henry's stomach twisted. He remembered the boy's quiet eyes, the way he always clung to his mother's side. "You're lying," Henry said through clenched teeth. "The boy is innocent. He's done nothing." The elder's dark robe fluttered though the air was still. Innocence does not matter in blood covenants. His father promised a seed to me. When Daniel broke his oath, the debt passed the child. Henry tightened his grip on the gun, his mind racing. "You can't have him." The elder's voice was calm, almost kind. "You cannot stop what was sealed with spirit. The river remembers. The blood remembers. And when the time comes, the river will collect what is owed." The water behind the elder began to glow, forming the faint outlines of faces. Faces of 5 who had been sacrificed. They looked peaceful, drifting just beneath the surface, their eyes open but unseeing. Henry's stomach turned. "You murdered them." The elder's head tilted slightly. "They gave themselves. Every one of them wished for miracles. I merely answered their prayers." Henry shouted over the roar of the wind. "You used them." "And your kind uses faith," the elder replied. "Which sin is greater?" Lightning cracked across the sky. The rain came down in sheets. Henry fired again, though he knew it wouldn't help. The bullet tore through mist. The elder didn't even flinch. "You waste your breath," he said, stepping closer. "But I will offer you a choice, detective. Walk away and your name will live. Stay, and you will become part of the covenant." Henry lowered his weapon slowly. "I don't walk away from devils." The elder's voice softened into something that almost sounded like pity. "Then your soul will join the river." He raised his arm, and the water surged upward, forming a massive wall behind him. Henry turned and ran, slipping on the wet sand as the wave crashed forward. It struck him like a hammer, dragging him under. The current spun him in circles, salt burning his eyes. He fought to surface, but unseen hands seemed to pull him deeper. He opened his eyes underwater and froze. Beneath him, the river glowed with that same blue fire. And within it, he saw shapes, not fish, not rocks, but human faces. Dozens of them, eyes open, mouths moving soundlessly. One face drifted closer, pale and familiar. It was Daniel Cole. The dead pastor stared at him, his lips forming words that Henry somehow heard in his mind. "Save the boy." Then Daniel's face dissolved, and Henry's lungs screamed for air. He kicked with all his strength, breaking the surface at last, gasping, dragging himself onto the muddy bank. Behind him, the water calmed again, as if nothing had happened. The elder was gone. Only the faint glow beneath the surface remained. Henry lay there for a long time, coughing up river water, the word "save" echoing in his head. When he finally stood, the moon had broken through the clouds, casting silver light over the dark water. He whispered to himself, "You won't take that child." Across town, Grace woke in a panic. She had been dreaming. No, not dreaming. Seeing. In her vision, Daniel had been standing in the middle of the river, his hands raised, his mouth moving as if praying. Behind him, the same tall figure rose from the depths, reaching for their son. She screamed herself awake, her heart pounding. Joy rushed into the room. "Grace, what is it?" Grace clutched her chest. "It's the boy. Something's coming for him. I can feel it." Joy tried to calm her, but Grace was already out of bed, grabbing her wrapper and the small crucifix the nurse had left by her side. "We need to leave now. Tonight. Where you want to go?" Joy asked. "Anywhere away from the water," Grace said, trembling. "As far from Warri River as we can go." They gathered what little they had and woke Michael. The boy was quiet, sleepy, his small hand warming Grace's trembling one. "Mummy, why are we running again?" he asked softly. She forced a smile. "We're going to somewhere safe, baby. Somewhere bright." But as they stepped out of the hospital, the wind picked up, carrying with it a faint humming sound, like a hymn being sung underwater. Grace froze. "Joy, you hear that?" Joy's eyes widened. "Yes, but where'd they come from?" Grace looked toward the distant skyline and saw the faintest glow rising above the Warri River. "Blue." Her voice broke. "He's not done yet." Henry reached his car, drenched and shivering. His phone buzzed in his pocket. It was Grace. He answered instantly. "Grace, are you and the boy okay?" "Detective," she said, her voice breaking. "He's coming. The elder. I saw him in my dream. He's after my son." "I know," Henry said quickly. "Listen to me. Don't go near the river. Stay inside. Lock your doors. I'm coming for you." "Hurry," she whispered. He said the debt must be paid before sunrise. Henry threw the phone onto the seat and started the engine. The tires spun in the mud, then caught. The headlights cut through the mist as he raced toward the hospital. His heart pounded like a drum. He didn't know what he would do when he got there, only that he had to reach them before the elder did. The rain came down harder. His wipers squeaked across the glass. A sudden flash of lightning blinded him for a second, and in that flash, he saw something standing in the middle of the road ahead. A tall, dark figure. He slammed the brakes, the car skidding sideways, stopping inches from it. The figure didn't move. It stood motionless in the headlights, robes fluttering though the air was still. Then slowly, it lifted its hand and pointed toward the east, where the river met the city. Henry's breathing came fast. "If it's a fight you want," he said aloud, "you'll get one." He stepped on the accelerator. The car surged forward, and the figure vanished in a burst of mist. By the time Henry reached the hospital, Grace and Joy were gone. The nurse on duty said they had left in a hurry, taking the child. Henry cursed under his breath. He ran back to his car, calling Peter. "Track Grace Cole's phone. Now." "Sir, she turned it off 10 minutes ago," Peter said. "Last signal was near the expressway, heading toward the river." Henry's blood went cold. "The river?" "Yes, sir. But why would she go there?" "Because she didn't," Henry said. "He's calling her." He turned the car around and sped toward the bridge, his headlights slicing through the rain. The closer he got, the thicker the mist became, glowing faintly blue. On the riverbank, Grace walked like someone in a trance. Joy tried to hold her back, shouting over the storm. "Grace, stop. You day go where?" Grace's voice was low, almost dreamy. "He says it's the only way. If I give myself, he'll spare the boy." Joy screamed. "No. He'd go kill all of us." Grace turned, eyes filled with tears. "I can't lose him too. Not after Daniel." Joy grabbed her shoulders, shaking her. "Grace, you no fit bargain with devil." But Grace didn't move. The blue light from the river reflected in her eyes. Behind her, little Michael began to cry. "Mummy, I'm scared." She knelt beside him, brushing his hair gently. "Don't be afraid, my son. Mummy's going to make everything right." "Grace!" A voice shouted through the storm. She looked up. Henry was running toward them, flashlight in hand, shouting her name. "Don't do this," he yelled. "That thing doesn't make deals. It only takes." Grace turned back toward the river, tears streaming. "If I go, he lives." "No," Henry shouted, slipping on the wet mud but getting back up. That's what Daniel thought, too. The water began to boil. The blue glow rose higher, forming a column of light that reached into the sky. Out of it, the elder emerged once more, his robe glistening with water, his face calm and terrible. "The final vessel," he said softly. "The covenant ends tonight." Grace took a step forward. Henry lunged and grabbed her arm. "You'll die." She looked back at him, her voice trembling. "If my death saves my son, then it's worth it." "No, Grace." But before he could stop her, she wrenched free and walked into the water. The elder raised his hand. The river parted around her feet, like it recognized its owner. Henry shouted, "Grace!" and ran after her, but the current rose, slamming into him, dragging him back. He fought to stand, but the force was too strong. Grace stopped waist-deep in the water. Looking up at the elder, "Take me," she said softly. "Leave my son alone." The elder's voice echoed through the storm. "So it shall be. The debt is paid." He lifted his arms, and the blue flame surrounded her. Joy screamed from the shore. Henry struggled to reach her, shouting her name again and again, but she only smiled, calm, peaceful, radiant. As the light consumed her, when it faded, the river went still. The elder was gone. Grace was gone. Only her scarf floated on the surface. Henry collapsed on the shore, exhausted, rain pouring down his face. He could hear Joy sobbing behind him, holding Michael tightly. The boy was crying for his mother. Henry looked out at the quiet water and whispered, "It's over. It has to be." But as he turned to comfort the child, the river behind him rippled, once, twice, and a faint blue light glowed beneath the surface, spreading outward in a slow, steady pulse. The rain had stopped before dawn, leaving the whole of Warri wrapped in fog. The river was calm now, pretending to be innocent again, gliding softly beneath the bridge as if the storm had never happened. But those who lived close to it knew better. They had heard things in the night. The sound of a woman crying, a soft hymn drifting across the water, and the faint glow that lingered long after the lightning stopped. Nobody spoke of it in the morning. They simply locked their doors tighter and prayed louder. Detective Henry Jacobs stood by the water's edge, his clothes still damp, his eyes hollow. He had not gone home. He hadn't even moved from the same spot since the storm ended. He watched the slow current, waiting, hoping to see her face rise from it. But there was nothing, only ripples, only silence. Behind him, Joy stood with her arms wrapped around little Michael, who had cried himself to sleep. His small head rested against her chest, his eyes swollen. Every few minutes he would whisper one word in his sleep. "Mummy." Henry rubbed his hands together slowly. "She's gone," he said, his voice low and rough. But she did it to save him. Joy's voice trembled. "She go rest now, ABI?" He didn't answer. He wasn't sure rest was part of this story. The sky was beginning to lighten. The air was heavy with mist. Henry turned toward Joy. "You should take the boy home. He shouldn't see this river again." Joy nodded slowly. "Where we go?" "Her house no safe. People still day gossip. Say she follow her husband join evil." Henry looked at her with weary eyes. "Then go far from Warri. Start new. Tell no one who you are." Joy looked down at the sleeping boy. "And you detective?" Henry looked back at the river. "I'm not done yet." Later that morning, the city woke to headlines that made the blood run cold. Pastor's wife disappears into river during midnight storm. Some said it was suicide. Others said she had been taken by spirits. A few swore they saw a blue flame rise from the river just before dawn. But in the police station, Henry sat in his office surrounded by the remnants of the case. Daniel's burned journals, photos of the victims, the strange symbols. He stared at the evidence wall that had haunted him for months. All the red strings led to one thing, the covenant of the elder. He replayed Grace's final words in his mind. "If my death saved my son, then it's worth it." It should have ended there. But evil never ends that easily. A knock on the door broke his thoughts. It was Peter, holding a small brown envelope. "Sir, they just delivered this." No name, No return address. Henry frowned. Who brought it? A young boy. Said a man at the river told him to give it to the detective who doesn't sleep. Henry's blood chilled. He opened the envelope slowly. Inside was a single wet page from one of Daniel's missing journals. The handwriting was the same shaky scrawl. It read, "If the vessel gives herself, the curse breaks, but the debt transfers to the witness. The one who stands between covenant and sacrifice becomes the keeper of the flame." Henry dropped the paper, his chest tightening. The witness, Peter blinked. "Sir," Henry whispered, "she died in front of me. I was a witness." A shiver ran through his body. The office light flickered. For a brief second, he saw his reflection in the window, but the eyes staring back glowed faintly blue. He stood quickly, knocking over his chair. "Peter, leave the room." "Sir, now!" Henry barked. Peter hesitated, then left, shutting the door behind him. Henry gripped the edge of his desk, breathing hard. "No," he whispered. "Not me." But deep inside, he already knew. The curse hadn't ended. It had only shifted. That night, Joy and Michael packed what little they had and boarded a bus out of Warri. The city lights faded behind them, replaced by dark roads and the hum of tires on wet asphalt. Joy looked out the window, her thoughts heavy. She whispered a prayer under her breath, clutching her rosary. The boy slept beside her, his small hand resting on her lap. As the bus turned onto the expressway, a soft light glowed faintly in the distance, a blue shimmer on the horizon. Joy closed her eyes and whispered, "Grace, may your soul rest." But in the seat behind her, a man stirred slightly, hidden beneath a hat. His hand rested on a black feather in his lap. It pulsed once with blue light, then went still. Meanwhile, Henry sat alone in his apartment. The windows opened to the night air. The city outside buzzed faintly, but he couldn't hear it. He sat motionless, staring at the glass of water on his table. For an hour it had been still. Now it rippled slightly, though there was no breeze. He whispered to himself, "I don't believe in curses." But then he heard it, the faint sound of water dripping. He looked toward the wall. A thin stream was trickling down from nowhere, forming a small puddle on the floor. He stepped closer. The water was glowing faintly blue. He stumbled back, knocking over the chair. His phone buzzed suddenly. Unknown number. Hands trembling, he picked it up. "Hello?" A deep voice spoke, calm and familiar. "Detective Jacobs." His throat went dry. "Who is this?" "You already know," the voice replied. "The river has no end, only currents." Henry gripped the phone tighter. "What do you want from me?" "The same thing I wanted from the pastor. The same thing I took from his wife. Balance." Henry's voice cracked. "You took enough lives. Let it end." The voice was quiet for a moment. Then it said, "It never ends. You saw the flame. You carry it now." Henry's phone screen flickered, and then, impossibly, blue light began to seep out from the speaker, spilling across his hand. He dropped it instantly, stumbling back. The phone shattered on the ground, still glowing faintly. His reflection in the window shimmered again, his eyes glowing bright blue, then fading. He covered his face with his hands. "God, help me." But the only answer was the sound of water running somewhere inside his apartment. 3 days later, Warri was quiet again. The church had been sealed off. The story had begun to fade from the headlines, and life returned to its uneasy rhythm. People forgot quickly in the city. There were always new scandals, new miracles, new gossip. But down by the river, the fishermen still refused to go near a certain stretch of water. They said at night they saw a man standing there, tall, alone, sometimes wearing a long coat, watching the current with glowing eyes. Some said it was a ghost. Others said it was a detective who never stopped working. They called him the Watcher of the River. That same night, far from Warri, in a small village where Joy had taken refuge, little Michael woke up crying. She rushed to him and found him sitting upright, sweat on his face. "My baby, what happened?" she asked softly. He pointed toward the window. "Mummy's singing." Joy froze. "Who?" He smiled sleepily. "Mummy. She's standing by the water. She said not to cry. Joy's heart pounded. She looked toward the open window. Outside, the moonlight reflected off the small stream that ran behind the house. It looked peaceful. Still, then she saw it. Just for a second, a faint figure of a woman in white, standing by the bank, smiling softly, her hair moving with the wind. The air shimmered faintly blue. Joy whispered a prayer, clutching the boy tightly. "Grace, if you can hear me, protect your son." The wind stirred the curtains gently, and the faint sound of a lullaby drifted into the room, the same hymn Grace used to hum in church. Then it faded. In Warri, Detective Henry walked once more to the river. He didn't know why. He only knew the water called him. The fog hung thick, glowing faintly blue. He stood at the edge, the same place where it had all ended. He spoke softly. "Grace, if you can hear me, tell me what to do." The river rippled once, then went still. In its reflection, he saw her, not behind him, not beside him, but inside the water, her eyes calm, her lips moving silently. Then he heard her voice in his mind. Protect the child. The covenant must never rise again. He nodded slowly. "I will." The river shimmered, then darkened. Henry turned and walked away, the mist swallowing his figure until he was gone. Behind him, the surface of the river rippled again, and from deep beneath, something moved, circling slowly, watching. They say evil never truly dies. It only waits, patient as water, quiet as faith. And sometimes the river looks calm not because it is at peace, but because it's holding its breath for the next soul to fall in.